My name is Morgan Hale, and the exact second my sweet sister-in-law realised I wasn't the clueless bridge she could walk over happened at my parents' Christmas dinner, when she slid a folder across the table, smiled like a Hallmark angel, and said, "Frank and Diane are updating the will tonight. You'll witness. It'll be so easy." Then my dad, my tough, proud, stubborn father, picked up the pen with a hand that didn't look like his anymore. Not steady, not sure, like someone had trained him to forget how to say no. My brother Ethan sat beside her, jaw clenched, eyes flat, nodding like a man who'd already practiced the lie. And I felt something inside me go ice cold, because the folder wasn't a will update. It was a quiet takeover. It was a blueprint for stealing my parents' home, their savings, and the last bit of security they'd earned after 40 years of work signed under the warm glow of Christmas lights. My sister-in-law, Sienna, met my eyes with that same voice she used when we were best friends. "Come on, Morg," she cooed. "Be a good sister." And right then, I understood the ugliest truth. I didn't introduce my brother to my best friend. I introduced my family to their predator. A year earlier, if you'd asked anyone in my life who I trusted the most, I would have said Sienna Lang without thinking. We met in our 20s in Columbus, Ohio, over something stupid. She complimented my boots at a coffee shop. I complimented her ridiculous neon scarf, and within 10 minutes we were laughing like we'd grown up in the same house. Sienna was one of those women who made friendship feel like a warm blanket. She remembered your dog's name. She brought soup when you were sick. She texted the night before big events with, "You've got this, babe." She called my parents Mom and Dad before she ever had a ring on her finger. And my parents loved her. My mum, Diane. Especially because Mom has always had a soft spot for women who seem a little fragile around the edges. She grew up taking care of everyone, and Sienna looked like someone who needed taking care of. Sienna told stories with just enough sadness to make you want to protect her. My dad walked out. My mum was complicated. I never really had stable family holidays. She'd say it with that little tremble, and my mum would reach for her hand across the table like she was adopting a wounded bird. And me? I loved her because she loved me. I'm the youngest of 3. I've spent my whole life being the responsible one, the one who makes the plans, the one who smooths the tension, the one who picks up the pieces after everyone else's choices explode. Sienna was the first friend who made me feel like I didn't have to hold everything alone. Then there was Ethan. My brother Ethan is 5 years older than me and has always been charming in the way a golden retriever is charming. He's attractive, he's funny, and he's the kind of guy who can talk his way out of consequences with a grin. He also has a history of dating women who treat relationships like temporary apartments. So when Sienna started showing up at family things with me, Sunday dinners, my mum's birthday, 4th of July at our place, my parents were thrilled. And I will own this until the day I die. I was the one who put Ethan and Sienna in the same room on purpose. It started as a joke. Sienna had just been dumped by some guy who wasn't ready to commit, and Ethan had just texted me that he was done with dating apps because everyone feels like a job interview. I said, "Maybe you two should meet. At least you'd have good conversation." Sienna laughed and said, "Ew, your brother. Isn't he like a boy man?" Ethan laughed and said, "Your friend. She seems too nice for me." Then Thanksgiving came. I invited Sienna because she didn't have family nearby. My mum insisted. No one should be alone on Thanksgiving. Sienna arrived in a soft sweater and brought homemade pumpkin bread, like she'd been training for this. Ethan showed up late, smelling like cologne and confidence, and Sienna looked at him like she'd just spotted a winning lottery ticket sitting on the counter. I didn't notice it then. Not really. I noticed later, looking back, how fast she adjusted herself around him, how she laughed at his jokes a little too loudly, how she asked him questions like she was taking notes. "Where do you work again? Do you own your place? Is your company stable? Do you want kids?" And Ethan ate it up, because Ethan has always been a man who confuses attention with love. 2 months later, they were official. 6 months later, Ethan proposed at a winery, and Sienna cried into my hair and said, "I can't believe this is my life." My mum cried. My dad cried, quietly, which for Frank Hale is basically Niagara Falls. I cried because I thought I'd helped build something beautiful. At their wedding, Sienna held my hands and said, "You're the reason I'm happy. I believed her. That's what makes it hurt to say this now. Sienna didn't become a monster overnight. She just stopped pretending when she didn't need to anymore. The first crack showed up right after the honeymoon. Ethan and Sienna came over for Sunday dinner, and Sienna walked into my parents' kitchen like she was already rearranging it in her mind. "Oh, Diane," she said, opening cabinets. "You still keep your spices up there?" My mom laughed. "Well, yes, that's where they've always been." Sienna tilted her head. You know, as you get older, reaching like that can be dangerous. A fall could change everything." It sounded like concern, but the way she said, "change everything," made my stomach tighten, just a little. Then, when my dad went outside to check the grill, Sienna leaned toward my mum and lowered her voice. "Do you ever worry about the stairs here?" she asked. "This house is charming, but it's a lot." My mum blinked. "It's our home," Sienna smiled, sweet as sugar. "Of course. I just mean, wouldn't it be nice to simplify? Less responsibility, more safety." Ethan walked back in and slung an arm around her. "Sienna thinks we should renovate your downstairs so you don't have to go upstairs as much." My dad frowned. "We don't need that." Sienna jumped in, soft voice, gentle hands. "Frank, it's not about need. It's about love. We want you around forever." And my parents, because they're decent people, heard love. I heard strategy. I didn't say anything. It wasn't enough to accuse anyone of anything. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then it kept happening. Sienna asked about their mortgage. None. Their savings. Comfortable. Their life insurance. Solid. Their will. Already done. Years ago. She asked these questions, the way someone asks about your favorite pizza topping. Casual. Almost bored. My mum would answer, because she trusted her. And my dad would get quiet and change the subject, because Frank Hale is a man who can smell bullshit, even when it's wrapped in satin. Which is why Sienna started working on Ethan harder. A few weeks later, Ethan called me late at night. "Morg," he said, voice tense. "Can you talk?" I was sitting on my couch in sweatpants, my laptop open to invoices. I run a small property management business, nothing glamorous, but steady. I manage rentals for a few local owners. It pays my bills, and it keeps me close to my parents. "What's going on?" I asked. Ethan sighed. "Sienna thinks Mum and Dad should put the house in my name." I sat up. "Excuse me? She's not saying like, take it," he rushed. "Just for ease, in case something happens. Probate is messy." I felt my pulse in my throat. Their will already covers that. "Yeah, but..." Ethan hesitated. "She says wills can be contested. She says if it's in my name, it protects it." "Protects it from who?" I asked. Sharp. Ethan exhaled. "Morg, don't be like that." I stared at the wall, trying to keep my voice level. "Ethan, do you hear yourself? You're asking our parents to sign their house over while they're alive. They'd still live there," he insisted. "And if you got divorced?" I said. "What then?" Silence. Then, quieter. "Why would I get divorced?" I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. "Because Sienna's been married to you for 5 minutes, and she's already counting your inheritance like it's a paycheck," he snapped. "She's my wife. She cares about our future." "And what about their future?" I shot back. "Mum and Dad's future?" Ethan hung up on me. That was new. Ethan doesn't hang up. Ethan sweet talks. Ethan smooths. Sienna had changed the rules. Thanksgiving that year was the first time Sienna turned the knife, where everyone could see it. We were at my parents' house. The classic smell of turkey and butter, and those weird canned cranberry things my dad pretends to hate but eats anyway. My mum was glowing, because she loves hosting. My dad was carving the turkey like it was a battlefield victory. Ethan and Sienna arrived carrying a store-bought pie in a plastic container, and Sienna kissed my mum on the cheek and said, "We're so lucky to have you." Then she looked at me and smiled. "Happy Thanksgiving, sis," she said. It was the first time she'd called me sis with that tone, like she was trying it on for ownership. Dinner started normal. Small talk. Football. My aunt's new knee replacement. Then Sienna tapped her glass lightly and said, "I just want to toast Frank and Diane. They've built such an incredible life, and such an incredible asset." My dad's knife paused mid-slice. My mum laughed nervously. Oh, Sienna. Sienna continued, eyes bright. This house is really something. The neighborhood, the yard, the equity. You two are sitting on a fortune. The word fortune landed like a rock in a pond. I watched my dad's jaw tighten. Ethan reached for Sienna's hand under the table like he was steadying her, but I recognized it. He was keeping her from saying more, like a man holding a leash that's starting to snap. Sienna squeezed his hand and kept going anyway. I just think it's so important to plan ahead, she said, to make sure everything stays in the family. Right, Frank? My dad set the knife down. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Eat your dinner, he said, flat. Sienna blinked, still smiling. Of course. I said, my dad repeated. Eat your dinner. The table got quiet. Sienna's smile twitched. Then she laughed lightly like he'd made a joke. Okay. Tough crowd. But the rest of the meal felt like sitting near a live wire. And afterward, while my mum was in the kitchen wrapping leftovers, Sienna cornered me in the hallway. She leaned close, like we were sharing secrets again. You're being weird, she whispered. I stared at her. I'm being weird? You just called my parents' house an asset at the dinner table. She rolled her eyes. God, Morgan, don't be dramatic. I'm thinking about the future. My parents are the future, I said. Her face shifted, just a flicker. Then she put on the old Sienna, the soft one. I miss you, she said, voice suddenly sad. You used to be on my side. I felt the pull of it. The old warmth, the old loyalty. Then she added, almost casually, you know, Ethan says you've always been jealous of him. I froze her. What? I said. She shrugged. I'm just saying, maybe you're projecting. You're not married. You don't have kids. Sometimes people cling to their parents when they don't build their own life. My cheeks burned. Not because it was true, but because it was cruel in a way she'd never been to me before. She stepped closer, smile thin. And it would be a shame, she whispered, if your little business ever got audited. You keep a lot of paperwork. My throat tightened. Is that a threat? I asked. Sienna's eyes widened in fake innocence. Oh my God. Morgan. No, I would never. Then she patted my arm like I was the unstable one and walked back into the kitchen like she hadn't just hissed poison into my ear. That night, I sat in my car in my parents' driveway for 10 minutes after everyone left, staring at the porch light. I kept thinking, did I just imagine that? But my body didn't feel imagined. It felt warned. The next escalation came disguised as help. My mum called me one Tuesday afternoon and said, Sweetheart, Sienna is setting us up with a financial planner. I nearly dropped my phone. Why? Well, Mum said, hesitant. She said it's smart. She says we could restructure things, protect ourselves. From what? I wanted to ask. Instead, I said, carefully, Mom, you already have a planner, Mr. Holcomb. You've worked with him for 10 years. Mom sighed. Sienna thinks he's outdated. Outdated? Like he was a kitchen appliance? Where is this meeting? I asked. At Ethan's, Mum said. Sienna wants to host. She says it's more comfortable. My skin prickled. Mum, don't sign anything. Mum's voice sharpened. Morgan, don't start. She's trying to help. I swallowed. Okay. Then let me come. Pause. Then softer. Sienna said it would be better if it's just family. I am family, I said. Mum hesitated. You know what she means. I did. She meant, you're a problem. I forced my voice steady. Mum, please, let me come. Another pause. Then my mum, like she was apologizing, said, Fine, you can come, but be nice. Be nice. As if I was the one plotting. The meeting at Ethan and Sienna's house felt like walking into a trap that had been decorated with throw pillows. Sienna greeted my parents at the door with hugs and compliments. She called my dad Frankie, like she'd earned it. Ethan barely looked at me. Then Sienna introduced the planner, a man in a sharp suit with a handshake that felt too smooth. This is Chad, she said brightly. He specializes in estate planning. I smiled tightly. We already have an estate plan. Chad's smile didn't reach his eyes. And we're just reviewing options. Sienna guided everyone to the dining table, where folders were already set out, like a presentation. The whole thing was staged like a corporate pitch. Chad started talking about streamlining, avoiding probate, protecting assets. Then he slid a document toward my dad. Transfer on death deed, he said casually. My dad frowned. What's this? It allows you to transfer the home, Chad said, to your son without court involvement. My dad's eyebrows lifted. So it would be Ethan's. Sienna jumped in, voice soft. Eventually, Dad. Only eventually. It's just safer. My dad looked at my mum. Diane. My mum's eyes darted towards Sienna, then Ethan, then back to the paper. I watched my mother's face, how she looked like she was trying to keep everyone happy at once. And I realized something terrifying. Sienna wasn't just manipulating my parents. She was weaponizing my mother's need for peace. I leaned forward. Frank, I said, using the name I've called him my whole life. Don't sign anything you don't understand. Sienna's smile tightened. Morgan, we're not children. I'm aware, I said. That's why you shouldn't be pressured into legal documents in someone else's dining room. Chad cleared his throat. There's no pressure here. My dad's voice came out low. Feels like pressure. Sienna laughed lightly. Oh my God, Frank. Nobody is pressuring you. We just want to make sure. Why? My dad cut in. The word was simple, but it had steel in it. Sienna blinked. Why what? Why are you so interested in my house? My dad asked. Ethan shifted. Dad, no, my dad said, holding up a hand. I want to hear her answer. Sienna's face flushed. Because I love you, she said, a little too fast. Because I care. Because I had no family growing up, and I finally have one, and I don't want anything to happen to you. She turned those big wet eyes on my mum, and my mum, predictable as sunrise, softened. Oh, honey, Mum murmured. Sienna sniffed, then like a switch looked at me with sudden coldness. Of course, she added. Some people here don't understand what family means. I stared at her. My dad pushed the paper away. Meeting's over. Chad looked surprised. Sienna looked furious. Ethan's face tightened. Dad, come on. My dad stood. No. My mum stood too, flustered. Frank looked at her. Diane, we're leaving. And my mum, after a tense pause, followed him. As they walked out, Sienna's smile snapped into place again for them. But when the door closed behind my parents, she turned to me. Her voice dropped low. You ruined that, she hissed. I didn't blink. Good. Ethan stepped between us. Morg, what is your problem? I laughed. Sharp. My problem? Your wife tried to get Dad to sign his house away, like it was a coupon. Sienna's eyes glittered. You're obsessed with control. No, I said, stepping closer. I'm obsessed with my parents not being scammed by someone I used to trust. Sienna's mouth curled. You don't trust me, because you never trusted anyone who wasn't you. Ethan snapped. Enough. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw something I didn't want to see. Not confusion, not concern, guilt, like he knew exactly what she was doing. And he'd agreed to it. I left without saying goodbye. In my car, my hands shook so hard, I had to sit for a minute before I could turn the key. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept hearing my dad's voice. Why are you so interested in my house? And Sienna's answer, because I love you. The lie was so smooth it could have been butter. December rolled in with snow and shiny lights, and that weird pressure everyone feels to pretend their family is cozy. Sienna used the season like a weapon. She started showing up at my parents' house more often. She brought cookies. She offered to help, organize paperwork. She took my mum shopping for safer shoes. She convinced my mum to install a new door lock, for security. And then because she's helpful, kept a spare key. My dad told me quietly one day, she's always here when you're not. That sentence lodged in my chest. I started coming by more. I started dropping in randomly, not calling ahead. And every time, Sienna would appear like she'd been summoned, smiling too brightly, acting like she'd been doing my mum a favour I should be grateful for. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, my mum called me and said, Honey, your father thinks you're poisoning him against Ethan. I went cold. What? Mum's voice sounded tired. He says you keep stirring things up. I gripped the phone harder. Mum, I'm not. I'm trying to protect you. Mum sighed. Sienna says you're threatened. My jaw clenched. Sienna says a lot. Then my mum said the sentence that made my stomach drop. She says Ethan might not be in the will anymore. If your father keeps being stubborn. I felt my heart hammer. Mom, I said. Sharp. What do you mean? Mom hesitated. Sienna said, it might be better if the house goes to Ethan directly, without Frank's interference. I inhaled slowly, trying not to panic. Mom, that's not how wills work. And Dad isn't interference. He's your husband. Mum's voice wavered. I know, but she's so insistent, and Ethan is so stressed. They're trying for a baby, and money is tight. And there it was, the lever Sienna was pulling. Guilt. Because my mother would rather bleed quietly than watch her kids struggle loudly. Mum, I said, softer. Listen to me. Ethan is a grown man, and if money is tight, that's not your emergency. Do not sign anything. Mum whispered. Sienna said you'd say that. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. 2 days later, I got my first real proof that Sienna wasn't just asking questions. She was already moving. I manage rentals, so I know how to read mail that isn't meant to be read. I was at my parents' house helping my dad hang lights because he refuses to admit ladders are now his enemy. A letter came through the slot. My dad grabbed it, glanced, and frowned. What is it? I asked. He handed it to me. It was from a law office. Not their law office. It was addressed to my mum. Inside was a draft of a revised will. I skimmed. My blood turned to fire. The new will left the house and a huge chunk of assets to Ethan, which... Okay, not automatically wrong. But then it named Sienna as executor. Not my mum. Not my dad. Not even both of them. Sienna. And there was a clause about capacity that looked off. Like it was setting up an argument that my dad was confused, and therefore decisions should be made in the best interest of the estate. My dad watched my face. What? I swallowed hard. Dad, did you sign anything? He shook his head, angry. No. Did Mom? He hesitated. I don't know. I walked into the kitchen where my mum was making coffee. Mum, I said, too tightly. Did you meet with a lawyer without Dad? My mum startled. Morgan! I held up the draft. My mum's face went pale. She stared at the paper like it was a snake. Then she whispered. Sienna said, it was just a review. I stepped closer. Did you sign anything? Mum's eyes filled. She brought papers, she said, voice shaking. She said it was just so the lawyer could look. She said it was just signatures for consultation. My stomach flipped. My dad's voice boomed from behind me. Diane. Mum flinched like a child. I turned slowly. My father stood in the doorway, face red, eyes furious, not at my mother, but at the situation. Did you sign something? He demanded, voice breaking with anger and fear. My mum cried. I didn't know. My dad slammed his hand on the counter. That woman is not stepping foot in this house again. Mum sobbed. She's Ethan's wife. My dad growled. Then Ethan can visit alone. I stood there between them, shaking. This was the pause before the storm. And in my head, one thought repeated like a warning bell. If Mum signed anything, Sienna already has ammunition. That night, I drove to Ethan's house. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just showed up. Sienna opened the door first. Of course. She smiled like a hostess. Morgan. Wow. Surprise. I didn't smile back. Where's Ethan? She widened her eyes. He's in the shower. Great, I said. We'll wait. I walked in without invitation. Sienna's living room smelled like a candle, called something like winter cashmere, and looked staged for photos. I stood in the center of it and said, I saw the will draft. Sienna's smile didn't falter. Oh, that, I repeated. You went behind my dad's back. Sienna sighed dramatically. Frank is stubborn. He doesn't understand modern planning. Diane was overwhelmed. I offered help. You offered control, I said. Sienna tilted her head. And you offered what, Morgan? Drama? I stepped closer. Did you get Mum to sign anything? Sienna's eyes sparkled with something mean. She signed what she needed to sign. My throat tightened. You tricked her, Sienna scoffed. No, I guided her. There's a difference. Then Ethan walked out. Hair wet, towel around his neck. He froze when he saw me. Morg? I turned to him. What are you doing? He blinked. What do you mean? Oh, the will. I snapped. The house. The papers. Ethan, what are you doing? Ethan's face hardened. I'm taking care of my family. I laughed. Sharp and disbelieving. By stealing from Mum and Dad? Sienna's voice slid in like a knife. Stop using the word stealing. It's inheritance. Inheritance happens when someone dies. I shot back. Not when you pressure them while they're alive. Ethan rubbed his temples. You don't understand. We need stability. We're trying to start a family. I stared. So get a second job. Move to a cheaper place. Don't rob our parents. Ethan's voice rose. It's not robbing. Dad has more than enough. They're sitting on a paid-off house while you what? I cut in. Spend money like it's imaginary? Sienna's eyes narrowed. Careful. I turned to her fully. No. You be careful. Her smile was gone now. The mask slid off. You think you're the gatekeeper of this family? She said, voice low. You think you decide who belongs? I took a breath. I brought you in. I gave you family. Sienna's lips curled. You gave me access. That sentence hit me like a slap. Because it was true. She stepped closer. You made it so easy, she whispered. Always the helper. Always the fixer. You practically handed me the blueprint. My hands shook with rage. You're disgusting. Ethan snapped. Morgan, stop. I looked at him, eyes burning. Stop what? Calling your wife out for trying to take our parents' house? Ethan's voice dropped. Dad was going to leave most of it to me anyway. I stared at him. And what about me? Ethan shrugged. You're fine. You always land on your feet. There it was. The family role I've always hated. Morgan doesn't need help. Morgan can take the hit. Morgan will be okay. Sienna smiled softly, like she'd won. See? Even Ethan knows. I leaned in, voice quiet but lethal. Listen to me. If you touch my parents' house, I will burn your little plan down to the foundation. Sienna's eyes widened like I'd insulted her in public. You wouldn't. I would, I said. And you know why? Because you think being nice makes me weak. It doesn't. It makes me patient. And my patience just ran out. I walked out, without waiting for a response. In my car, I sat in the dark, shaking, and realized I couldn't just warn people anymore. Warnings were useless when the other person was already swinging the axe. I needed a plan. I'm not a lawyer, but managing properties teaches you something important. People lie in writing all the time. They forge signatures. They hide documents. They pressure others into signing just forms. And the only thing that stops them is evidence. So I started building a file, quietly. I began with my parents. I sat them down at my kitchen table with coffee and said, we're going to talk. And nobody is going to say keep the peace again. My dad looked relieved. Like he'd been waiting for someone else to take the wheel. My mum looked ashamed. Like she already knew she'd been played. Mom, I said gently, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at what she did. My mum cried. I just wanted Ethan to be happy. I know, I said. That's why she picked you. My mum flinched. Then I asked, what did you sign? My mum wiped her eyes and said, she had me sign a release. She said it was for the lawyer to speak to the bank. My dad cursed under his breath. I said, okay, we can fix this. Step 1, I got them to request copies of anything signed, in writing. Step 2, I booked an appointment with their actual estate attorney, Mr. Holcomb. When we sat in his office, he took one look at the draft, and his mouth tightened. This is aggressive, he said carefully. My dad leaned forward. Is it legal? Holcomb adjusted his glasses. A draft is not binding, but if your wife signed authorizations, it may have allowed someone to access information. And if anyone tries to argue incapacity, my mum went pale. Incapacity? Holcomb nodded. That clause is unusual. My dad slammed his hand on the armrest. I'm not incapacitated. I know, Holcomb said calmly, but someone is laying groundwork. My throat tightened. Can we lock things down? Holcomb nodded. Yes. New documents, new executor, medical directives, power of attorney only to each other, and I recommend you document any pressure or coercion. My dad looked at me. We do that. I nodded. We do that. That was the moment I made the decision. I wasn't just protecting my parents. I was going to expose Sienna so thoroughly she'd never be able to do this to anyone else again. Sienna tried to speed up when she felt resistance. That's how predators work. When the prey stops moving, they bite harder. She started showing up at my parents' house again despite my dad's boundary while he was out. My mom confessed one day. Voice small. She told me Ethan will cut us off if we don't help. My father nearly exploded. Cut us off? From what? Their debt? Debt. That word. Stuck. Because here's the thing. Sienna wasn't pushing this hard, just because she was greedy. Greed is lazy. This was frantic. This was someone who needed cash fast. So I did what I do for a living. I followed the paper trail. I pulled public records. I looked up liens. I checked court filings. And I found the first real crack in their shiny life. A notice of default, tied to a business LLC, Sienna's name attached. Not Ethan's. Sienna had started a boutique consulting business months earlier, bragging about being an entrepreneur now. She'd taken out loans, big ones, and she was behind. Then I found something else, a civil claim filed by a former client accusing her of fraud. Nothing finalized yet, but the accusation was detailed. And suddenly, Sienna's urgency made perfect sense. She wasn't planning for the future. She was trying to plug a sinking ship with my parents' house. I printed everything. I put it in my file. Then I waited for the right stage. Because Sienna thrived in private. I wanted her under lights. Christmas dinner was her chosen stage. She texted my mum in a group chat. We should all do Christmas Eve at your house. I'll bring a special gift. My dad wanted to say no. My mum begged. If we say no, Ethan won't come. My dad's shoulders slumped. Fine. But I'm not signing a damn thing. I told my dad. Let them come. He looked at me sharply. Why? Because sometimes you don't stop a thief by locking the door. Sometimes you stop them by letting them walk in while the cameras are rolling. I have a plan, I said. My dad didn't ask what it was. He just nodded once. That's what trust looks like when someone's scared, but brave anyway. Christmas Eve arrived with snow flurries and bright lights and the smell of ham. My parents' house looked beautiful because my mum refuses to let drama ruin her decorations. Ethan and Sienna arrived, dressed like they were going to a gala. Sienna hugged my mum too long, then kissed my dad's cheek like nothing had happened. Frank, she said brightly, I'm so glad we're all together. My dad grunted. Ethan barely met my eyes. We sat down to dinner. Sienna was on her best behavior for 20 minutes. Then she pulled out the folder. Of course she did. She slid it across the table, right toward my dad, and said, I brought something that'll help everyone feel secure. My mum's hand trembled. My dad stared at it like it was radioactive. Sienna smiled at me. Your witness, right? Since you're so involved. I took a slow sip of water and said, Sure. Ethan blinked. Morgan. Sienna cut him off sweetly. It's fine. Transparency, right? My dad opened the folder. Inside were documents, clean, crisp, with sticky tabs, like she'd prepared for a meeting, not a holiday. Sienna leaned in, voice soothing. It's just a small update. You sign? Diane signs. Morgan witnesses. Done. My dad looked at the signature line. Then he looked at me. My mum looked like she might faint. Ethan's jaw clenched. And I said calmly, before anyone signs anything, I want to play something. Sienna's smile froze. Play something? I pulled my phone from my pocket. Ethan's eyes widened. Morgan, don't... I looked at him. Oh, Ethan, I'm doing it. Sienna's voice sharpened. This is not the time. I hit play. My phone speaker filled the room with Sienna's voice, recorded from the night she'd cornered me in the hallway at Thanksgiving. You know, the recording said, clear as day, it would be a shame if your little business ever got audited. My mum's fork clinked against her plate. My dad's eyes went dark. Sienna's face drained of colour. Ethan half stood. Morg. I raised a hand. Not done. I swiped and played another audio clip, one I'd recorded at Ethan's house when she thought she was untouchable. You gave me access. Her recorded voice purred. You practically handed me the blueprint. My mum sucked in a breath. My dad's hand curled into a fist. Sienna's mouth opened, then closed. Ethan stared at his plate like it might save him. I looked at my parents. I'm sorry, I said softly, But you needed to hear who she is when she's not performing. Sienna finally found her voice. You recorded me? You psycho. Careful, I said, voice like ice. That word doesn't land well when you're the one forging paperwork. Ethan snapped. She didn't forge. I pulled a second folder from my bag and slid it onto the table. My father's eyes narrowed. What's that? I opened it, page by page. Public records, I said. Sienna's default notices. Her civil claim. Her loans. Sienna's face twisted. You invaded my privacy. I smiled, humorless. It's public, Sienna. That's what happens when you build your life on paperwork. My dad's voice came low. Is this why you want my house? Sienna's eyes flashed. No. I slid one more page forward. A printed email because yes, I'd gotten lucky. One of Sienna's planner contacts had sent something to the wrong address months ago, and my mum, confused, had forwarded it to me without reading. I'd saved it. The subject line read, Capacity Strategy. My dad's face went stone. My mum whispered, What does that mean? I looked at her gently. It means they were planning to paint Dad as confused, so they could claim you needed to protect the assets. My mother's eyes filled with tears this time, not guilt, but rage. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. Stop! I turned to him. You knew. Ethan's eyes darted. I didn't. You did, I said. Because you didn't stop her. You didn't warn Mum. You didn't tell Dad. You just hoped it would happen quietly so you could tell yourself it wasn't theft. Sienna snapped. It's not theft. It's family. My dad stood up slowly. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just looked at Sienna like she was something rotten on his carpet. You are not my family, he said. Sienna's eyes went wide. My mum stood too, shaking. I treated you like my daughter. Sienna's voice cracked, but not with sorrow, with fury. Because you're weak. You needed someone to run things. My mum flinched like she'd been slapped. Ethan barked. Sienna! But it was too late. The mask was off. I stepped forward, voice quiet, but deadly. Say it again. Call my mother weak again. Sienna glared at me. She is. And you think you're so righteous, but you're just bitter, because no one chose you. Ethan's face twisted. Sienna! Stop! I looked at my brother. This is who you married. He looked like he might break. Then my dad spoke again, voice steady. Get out, he said. Sienna laughed, harsh. You can't kick me out of my own future. My dad pointed toward the door. Out. Now. Sienna looked at Ethan, expecting him to fix it. Ethan didn't move. He just stood there, silent, like a man finally realizing the cost of his cowardice. Sienna's face contorted with hatred. She turned to me and hissed, You think you won? You have no idea what I'm capable of. I stepped close enough that only she could hear me. My voice stayed calm. Oh, I do, I whispered. That's why I came prepared. Then I spoke louder for the whole table. Dad, Mum, the new estate documents are already signed. Holcomb filed them yesterday. Power of attorney is locked. Medical directives are locked. And the old authorizations Mum signed. He sent revocations to every bank and institution this morning. Sienna's face went slack. Ethan's head snapped up. What? My dad's voice came out like a growl of relief. Done. Sienna lunged toward the folder she brought, hand outstretched. I grabbed it first and held it up. Not yours, I said. Sienna's breath came fast. Give that back. My dad said, if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. Sienna's eyes flicked to my mother, calculating. Then she did the thing I will never forget. She smiled and said sweetly, Diane, you wouldn't do that to me. My mother wiped her tears, lifted her chin, and said, with a steadiness I hadn't heard in years, I would. Sienna started, and for the first time, she looked small, not fragile, just caught. She grabbed her purse, yanked it over her shoulder, and spit. Fine. Enjoy dying alone. Then she stormed out. Ethan stood there for a long moment, like his body didn't know which direction to go. My dad looked at him. Go with your wife, my dad said. Ethan's eyes filled. Dad? No, my dad cut in. You made your choice every time you stayed silent. Ethan's shoulders shook. Then he walked out after her, slow, like each step hurt. The front door slammed, and the Christmas lights blinked softly in the sudden quiet like nothing had happened at all. You'd think that would be the end, but people like Sienna don't leave quietly. They don't accept consequences. They lash out. 2 days after Christmas, my mum called me, panicked. "Morgan," she whispered, "Sienna is telling people your dad is losing his mind." I closed my eyes. "Of course she is. She told Aunt Linda that Frank attacked her." Mum cried. "She told Ethan's friends that you're manipulating us." My jaw clenched. "Okay." Mum sobbed. "What do we do?" I said calm. "We document everything." And we did. My dad filed a formal trespass notice. Holcomb sent cease and desist letters. My mum wrote a statement about the pressure and the misleading paperwork. Then Sienna made her biggest mistake. She tried to file paperwork anyway. She attempted to submit the transfer on death deed and claim it had been agreed upon. Holcomb caught it immediately because he'd already locked the title and put alerts in place. And when the county clerk flagged signature inconsistencies, it triggered a review. That's when the legal world stopped being a family drama and started being what it actually was. Fraude, elder manipulation, forgery, attempted unlawful transfer. Sienna's planner, Chad, suddenly became hard to reach because shady people disappear when the spotlight hits. But Sienna didn't. She doubled down. She showed up at my parents' house one afternoon while my dad was out and my mum was alone. My mum called me, whispering, "She's here." I was 10 minutes away. I drove like my tires were on fire. When I pulled up, I saw Sienna's car in the driveway, like she still owned the place. I walked in to find Sienna standing in my parents' living room, smiling like she belonged, while my mum looked trapped. Sienna turned to me and said, "Oh good, the attack dog is here." My mum's voice shook. "Sienna, please leave." Sienna ignored her. She held up her phone and waved it. I have a recording of Diane admitting she signed those papers. My mum flinched. Sienna looked at me. "If you keep pushing this, I'll tell everyone your mum is the one who tried to give us the house." I stepped closer, voice dangerously calm. "Blackmail?" Sienna shrugged. "Call it leverage." My mum whispered, "Morgan." I reached into my bag and pulled out my own phone. Sienna smirked. "More recordings? What, you have a hobby?" I hit play. It was the doorbell camera audio from the day before. Because yes, my dad had installed cameras after Christmas Eve. In the recording, Sienna's voice was clear, sharp, and ugly. "If you don't sign, Diane, Ethan will hate you. And when Frank finally ends up in a home, you'll be alone." My mother's face crumpled. Sienna's smirk vanished. I held my phone up. "Say another word." Sienna's eyes darted like an animal cornered. Then she snapped. "You think you're so smart? You're just a lonely little control freak." I took one step closer. "And you're a grifter who thought she could wear my friendship like a disguise." Sienna's face twisted. "I loved you." I laughed once, bitter. "No, you loved what I could give you." My mum's voice rose for the first time, shaking but loud. "Get out of my house." Sienna stared at her. My mum pointed at the door. "Get out," my mum repeated. "Before I call the police." Sienna's face flickered fear, then rage. Then she hissed at me. "You'll regret this." I didn't blink. "You already do." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle a framed family photo. My mum collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. I sat beside her, put my arm around her, and felt my own eyes burn. Because this wasn't just about assets. It was about betrayal. It was about realizing that someone you fed at your table was sharpening knives in your kitchen. The legal process took weeks. Sienna hired a lawyer and tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. Ethan, my brother, finally came to my parents' house alone one night. He looked wrecked, unshaven, hollow-eyed. My dad didn't invite him in at first. Ethan stood on the porch, like a teenager who'd been caught stealing. "I messed up," he said, voice cracking. My dad stared at him. "Yes," Ethan swallowed. She said it was just planning." I stepped forward. "Ethan, she threatened me. She threatened Mum." Ethan's eyes filled. "I know." My mum's voice trembled. "Why didn't you stop her?" Ethan looked down, shame spilling out of him. "Because I wanted it to be true," he whispered. "The security, the house, the easy fix." My dad's voice came out like gravel. You were willing to take from us while we're alive. Ethan's shoulders shook. I didn't think. My dad cut him off. That's the problem. You didn't think. You just wanted. Ethan turned to me, desperate. Morgan, I'm sorry. I stared at him, heart heavy. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. He nodded, tears falling. I know. Then he said something that surprised me. She's been lying to me too. My dad's eyes narrowed. How? Ethan swallowed. The debt. It's worse than you found. She has credit cards in my name. My stomach dropped. What? Ethan whispered. I didn't know. I found statements hidden in her office. She took out a second personal loan. My dad cursed. Low. My mum looked horrified. Ethan's voice broke. She told me if I left her, she'd ruin me. I took a long breath. That was the twist I hadn't expected, not that Sienna was manipulative, but that she'd been building a cage around Ethan too. He wasn't innocent, but he wasn't just greedy. He was trapped in something he helped create. My dad's voice stayed cold. So what do you want? Ethan wiped his face. I want out. My mum's eyes filled again. Oh, sweetheart. My dad held up a hand. No, not yet. Then my father looked at Ethan and said the line that finally made this real. If you want out, you testify. Ethan froze. Against her? My dad nodded once. Against her. In writing. Under oath. You tell the truth about what she pushed, what she planned, and what she tried to do. Ethan's mouth opened. Closed. Then he nodded slowly. Okay. And that was the first time in months I saw my brother do something brave. When the hearing came, Sienna showed up, polished and pretty, like she thought looking innocent would work like perfume. She sat behind her lawyer and smiled at my parents like she still had a chance to charm them. Then Ethan walked in on the other side. Sienna's smile faltered. He didn't sit with her. He didn't look at her. He sat behind his own counsel, and when the judge asked questions, Ethan answered honestly. He admitted she'd pressured my mom. He admitted she'd wanted to move quickly, before Frank changed his mind. He admitted she'd talked about making my dad look confused, so they could manage things. Sienna's lawyer objected. Her face turned red. She whispered furiously to him, but it was too late, because evidence doesn't care how pretty you are, and cameras don't care how sweet you sound. By the time it ended, the county referred the matter for investigation. Forgery review, elder exploitation review, financial fraud review. Sienna walked out of the courthouse and saw me waiting near the steps. She marched toward me, eyes blazing. You did this, she hissed. I didn't move. No, I said calmly. You did. She shook with rage. I trusted you. I laughed, bitter. You used me. Her voice dropped, venomous. You always thought you were better than me. I stepped closer, voice low and sharp. I never thought I was better. I thought you were my sister. Her eyes flickered. Then she spit. You don't deserve family. I held her gaze. And you don't deserve access to mine. Her lawyer grabbed her arm. Sienna, let's go. She yanked free and leaned close, whispering like she wanted her words to crawl under my skin. I hope they die, knowing they chose you over their son. I leaned in, calm as winter. They didn't choose me. I whispered back. They chose the truth. Sienna's face twisted. Then she turned and stormed away, heels clicking like gunshots. The fallout wasn't neat. It wasn't a satisfying movie montage where everyone learns a lesson in a single day. My mum grieved, because losing Sienna wasn't just losing a person, it was losing the idea she'd adopted. My dad got quieter, but also steadier, like he'd finally accepted that being kind doesn't mean being naive. Ethan filed for divorce. He moved into a small apartment and started paying down the debt. Real debt, not imagined inheritance. He showed up at my parents' house one Sunday with groceries and didn't ask for anything, just helped. My dad didn't hug him, but he let him in. And sometimes, that's how healing starts. Slow, uncomfortable, real. As for Sienna, the investigation didn't disappear. Paper trails don't care about charm. And when people realize you tried to manipulate an elderly couple into signing away their home, the community stops smiling at you in the grocery store. She lost friends. She lost credibility. And eventually, after enough documents, enough signatures questioned, enough bank statements reviewed, she lost the one thing she'd wanted most. Control. The final moment of justice didn't come in a dramatic courtroom shout. It came in a quiet phone call from Holcomb. "It's done," he said. "Your parents' estate is locked down, title secured, executor confirmed, and the county's proceeding." I exhaled so hard I felt lightheaded. Then I drove to my parents' house. My mum opened the door and looked lighter. Still tired, still hurt, but no longer afraid. My dad was in his recliner, reading. He looked up at me and said, "You hungry?" I smiled through the sting in my eyes. Always. We ate leftovers at the kitchen table. No fancy speeches. Just normal food, normal conversation, normal life, the things Sienna tried to steal. And that night, when I left, my mum hugged me so tight I felt her heart pounding. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" I asked. "For not listening sooner," she said. I kissed her temple. "You listened when it mattered." My dad walked me to the door, hands in his pockets. He cleared his throat, then said roughly, "You did good, kid." Frank Hale doesn't hand out praise like candy, so I just nodded, throat tight. Then he added, "Next time you bring someone into this family, vet them like a contractor." I laughed, a real laugh. "I will," I promised. Here's the lesson I didn't want to learn, but needed anyway. Sometimes, the people who call you sister, the loudest, are the ones counting what they can take from you. Kindness is not weakness. Forgiveness is not permission. And keeping the peace is just another way of saying let the wrong person win. I didn't win because I was louder than Sienna. I won because I stopped trying to be nice to someone who was never playing fair. And my parents didn't keep their home because we got lucky. They kept it because we finally chose truth over comfort, over silence, over family fantasy. Now, when I walk into that house, the one my dad built with his hands, and my mum filled with warmth, I don't see an asset. I see a life, and I will never again let a predator call theft love.